So good evening, everybody. My name's Peter Alford. I'm president of the Gungahlin Community Council. This is the August meeting of the Gungahlin Community Council. It's good to see tonight. We've got quite a good number of the members of the GCC executive here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but apologies from a couple more. Cherie and Darren couldn't make it this evening. But I'd also especially like to note that we have several of our MLAs here, and that is always greatly appreciated. Hello, Leanne. Hello, Andrew. And Peter Kane, who's the opposition spokesman, the shadow minister for planning, amongst many other responsibilities. So thank you for joining us this evening. The agenda tonight is not on the screen, which is confusing. Get control of that. That's not going to work, is it? I'll struggle to get up to do that. Sorry, just bear with me a moment. I'm just dealing with a few challenges with working out what's online and what's not. Slideshow. Okay, slide. Slide. No, I know it's wrong. I was just, fixing it is non-trivial in real time. Right, so just those of us in the room will just have to bear with me for 10 seconds while I go through this without you seeing it. So tonight we'll provide a short update from the Gungahlin Community Council on things we've been active with in the last month or so. Most of them are part of long-running campaigns. We have then presentations from Core Developments on their new development in the town centre, on the microforest project, and hopefully we'll have the rest of the microforest team here. Evo Energy have come along this evening, provide a bit of update on what they're up to in Canberra and Gungahlin, and the Canberra Hospital Master Plan crew are busy consulting widely across Canberra and have asked to speak to us tonight, so they'll be coming up last. Not working. One of those nights where you just wonder what's going on. Can you bear with me for 10 seconds here in the room? I'll just see if I can fix this one. Work out what's going on. I've got to work out things. Video. I'm trying to find the thing where you have multiple screens, but I'm not going to find it quickly. And I'll just.
Are there any 12-year-olds in the room?
No, it's not 12-year-olds. I've just got to get the right screen in the right place, and it's not working for me. So let me try and do this. Slideshow from beginning. And where's it gone? Oh, it's in front of me. The problem is I've got dual screen mode on this. It's killing me at the moment. But anyway, that's going to be a problem all night. So let me just push on. Okay. That's what everyone else is saying. I've got the slides here. That's not helpful. Okay, we'll make that work through here. I'll make this work. Back to Yep. Yeah. No. I'm going to make do with the way it is here. So I've just got to then go back to the Zoom meeting and share that slide. Okay, so I apologise for those people who are remote. This is not the best view you can provide, or for those people locally, but let me just press on nevertheless. The major campaign we've been involved in for most of this year has been our call to suspend land sales in the Gungahlin Town Centre. We're reflecting the views of the community here in that there's been a severe loss of trust in the planning system to deliver a viable community, a viable town centre for the community, supporting all of the retail, employment, entertainment and community needs that we expect of any town centre. Just an update on things that have happened in the past month. And much of this is documented on our website, so I'd encourage you to look at the background here. The petition that was sponsored by Andrew Braddock was signed by 714 people, has now been formally tabled in the Assembly. Andrew tells us that there'll be a deliberation process within the Assembly about what to do with it. It's very likely to go to the Planning Standing Committee, and they will then determine whether they roll it into some of their existing activities, like the inquiry into draft variation 364, or whether they do something else, and we get to hear how that will play out. But a very strong vote of confidence in the activities we're taking, and I think are broadly reflective of the Gungahlin community, and I'm sure the community will let us know if we haven't got that right. We attended the Environment and Planning Forum, which is an event run by the Planning Directorate, Environment Planning and Sustainable Development Directorate, every couple of months with a wide range of stakeholders, including the community councils, the Conservation Council, Pedal Power, ATCOS, a variety of others. And unusually, the Planning Minister attended that meeting and answered questions. We provided a number of questions ahead of time, which he didn't answer on the day, but provided written responses to later, but substantially did not acknowledge that there was an issue and that the processes of the Standing Committee on Planning would address those. When I get a moment, I'll post those questions and those responses on our website for you all to enjoy. The other major development was the original. The Planning Minister decided that draft variation 364, which made these major changes to the amount of commercial space reserved in the town centre and significantly increased the amount of space in the town centre available for mixed use with a focus on residential. The Planning Minister recommended the Planning Committee review that change to the precinct code of the territory plan. And the committee is running an inquiry into draft variation 364. There were written submissions, and of course we made a written submission that's on our website. And then they held hearings where the committee got to ask questions of the people who've made submissions. And they spoke to a number of industry people, the community council and residents, although I don't think any other resident or community groups spoke other than us. And then they had the minister and government representatives who are being questioned by the committee. This is riveting watching. You can look at all on video. I encourage you all to have a look. But I would say that the views from the industry were particularly insightful and particularly interesting around, well, the way things are is driving these sort of behaviours and outcomes. They were somewhat confused when asked difficult questions like, what's the definition of mixed use? But they were at least more specific about the sort of things that were good and bad than we saw when the government people and the people from the Directorate spoke. We again reiterated our position, answered a number of questions, and we had a follow-up response we provided in writing, which I also posted on our website just this afternoon, to give you some of the flavour of the sort of questions we were being asked around, are you guys representative of the community? Guys and girls, I represented the community. How did you, form your opinions on these topics? What do you expect to see? And a whole range of topics. So you can watch the video or you can read the written translation. One of the questions asked by the committee of the planning minister was, have you, the planning minister, attended any community council meetings? To which the minister was, of course, required to say no because he hadn't. But a couple of days later, we got a call from the planning minister's office offering up the planning minister's time in our October meeting. So I'd strongly encourage all Gungahlin residents to at least pack out both of these rooms to make sure they send a clear message about what's important to them when the planning minister attends in October. So I commend that date to you. So I'm just man versus computer. Okay, it's not too low. Now, look, just to give you some flavour of this, what's in bold on the next two slides are what's in the petition that we worked with Andrew on. So these are the bold things of what we're asking for in the petition, and this is kind of where we see these various issues playing out. The original community consultation produced a document called the Planning Refresh Community Report, and some of what's in there is being addressed by the inquiry into DV364. We have to do some follow-up work with Minister Steele about transport and parking in the town centre, and we've reached out to the Suburban Land Agency to find out what they're doing with the consultation they've promised on the linear park, which has the potential to feature as a major part of East Gungahlin. So things going on in that space. We've certainly asked for a complete review of draft variation 364, and our feeling as the committee is asking a lot of the right questions. And we, as I mentioned before, have written submissions, provided more comments to appear before the hearings. Suzanne Orr had also raised a motion in the Assembly, as Andrew has done as well, seeking a whole bunch of actions around development in Gungahlin, but with a specific focus on mixed use developments. The minister is committed to provide a response to that motion before the last sitting day this calendar year, which is the 2nd of December. So that's quite a long wait, unfortunately. But I know that Suzanne is working on a number of issues in that space. And as part of other work the planning director is doing, the new planning reform, they have commissioned some consultations to give them advice on how mixed use might work. Also, inside our petition, we were looking for a clearer statement of what a recent assessment of community and recreation needs is going to address. We are still chasing a succinct summary of that, but the online consultation that the director did to assess the needs for community recreation in Gungahlin was, if I'm generous, lightweight. A lot of people I spoke to representing community and supporting groups found it very difficult to respond to. It was very narrow around how you would respond to the questions. And we were told that the assessment would be made public. It wasn't guaranteed. The intention was that it be made public. So we'd like to see that happen. But what we're most concerned about is that this process is somehow going to be used to justify a series of actions that appear to be unfolding on the Casey community sites. These are the two sites, 2 blocks across the road from the Casey Group Centre, which were originally planned to be community sites and now seem to be slated to hold 100 residences and 24,000 square metres of commercial space, which doesn't feel very community to me, or indeed for other members of the community that have been very active around this for some years. We're really looking for some genuine community consultation and input that it's actually sticky and high quality. If I think about the online consultation process done here, which is for all of the community services in Gungahlin, you kind of hope that that would be full of detail, and it's not been high quality. Whereas if you look at the consultation done for the Gold Creek Homestead, for example, it was extremely high quality. So it is possible to do good consultations and make the views of the community work and binding on what the outcome will be, and hopefully we'll know more about that pretty soon. So we have reached out to the SLA. They've committed to doing a better job of bringing blocks to market in terms of setting expectations. Exactly how that's going to materialise is not yet clear, but we've reached out to them and they've acknowledged they need to get cracking on this. We have a budget coming up in August well, it's already in August, on August 31. And part of that budget will be the next land release program, which will undoubtedly include blocks in Gungahlin Town Centre. We're still trying to understand why the government proposed to significantly reduce the community space. That was a focus of the questioning in draft variation 364 inquiry. And we've met with the Chief Minister's Directorate, specifically Economic Development, around what things they could do to encourage businesses, or indeed any reason for people to come to Gungahlin other than to sleep and live, to Gungahlin. And I have to be honest, we had a great first meeting, and that was 2 months ago when we've really not had any substantial feedback from that. So we continue to pursue that with a level of activity. I mentioned the Casey sites. They're located on the right of this slide for those who are watching at home, immediately across the road from the Casey Group Centre. Somewhere along all of Casey has been identified as a urban densification area as part of the ACT planning strategy. And it appears that that has percolated down into these blocks as this requirement for a lot more commercial and a lot more, and an amount of more residential. Now, all of this is happening without any really clear understanding of what the demand for community services is. As you'll see in a moment, we did meet with a whole collection of the community groups in Gungahlin with a couple of the ARB MLAs, and it's a very clear message from the community groups that are operating in Gungahlin that there is a chronic lack of facilities and funding to deliver services in Gungahlin around the areas that are specific and unique to Gungahlin, like broadly diverse population, very young population, a lot of families in particular. So it's good to see all of them coming together and providing some advocacy. But anyway, that's what's happening with Casey. We're trying to get a bit more active about that going forward. As I mentioned before, Mick Gentleman has indicated he'll attend our October meeting. Really, it's really important that we demonstrate as a district and vote with our feet to show that what we've been advocating for is broadly held by the views broadly held by the community. I think it would be really great if people were able to get here in person, and which hopefully we'll be allowed to do in these COVID safe weird world. But also specific issues, and we've started with saying, look, we're not really much interested in broader things that are happening, that they're all important, like the new planning frame for Gungahlin, for the ACT. What we're really interested in are these key three issues. So if anyone here in the room or online thinks these aren't the three top things we should be digging into with the Minister for Planning, who's also the Minister for Police and Emergency Services, please let us know. Yeah, just to round this out, I met with COMPS ACT. So COMPS are the Coalition of Mass Participation Sport in the ACT. And what's happened is these big participation sports like rugby league, rugby union, Aussie rules, cricket, hockey, basketball, netball, and I've probably forgotten one or two. I think there are 9. All of them have come together, are frustrated with the lack of a strategic approach to funding facilities in the ACT, and finding that they're getting picked off one sport at a time. And so they're trying to put a more cohesive front together. And they were quite interested in some of the challenges we've had in trying to pull together and try to bridge the gap between what we currently have and what we probably should have for a community of 80,000 in terms of sporting and rec facilities.
From online,
yep.
Who wants to make it full size of the game?
I know they want to make it full size, but I'm at war with my laptop and I can't get it there. We could. Yeah, I know how to get there. The issue is that and versus laptop. How's that? I can make it better. The issue is for all those playing along at home. I should have started this in not extend display, but share screen mode. But let's just press on for the moment. So we had a meeting with comps. So we're trying to work with other groups that are actively doing things. This Gungahlin Community Governance Forum has been great, initiated by some of the team at Bernardo's, but involves the Y Engage people, and also community services, communities at work, and probably Police Citizens Youth Club. Huge number of organisations screaming to be able to deliver more services in Gungahlin. And their three top issues that we tabled were lack of funding to actually fund people to do delivery of services in Gungahlin, a temporary requirement to identify space so that they actually have somewhere to deliver services. And then what are we doing with the infrastructure builds, which of course will take a year or two or more. And that's why there needs to be some sort of focus on getting some sort of additional space quickly somewhere. And then, as I mentioned before, we're looking forward to the budget in August, where we're looking hopefully to some responses to our call to subpoena land sales in the town centre. Be curious to see what's in the land release program. And we had a number of specific budget asks, as you might recall, again, focused on the town centre, but also traffic, community facilities, and recreational infrastructure. So hopefully that's a useful update for you all on things we've been busy with. The rest of the agenda will now fold out, and I will do battle with my laptop again to try and get things sorted. Any questions online or here in the audience? Okay, all right, we'll ask the team from Core Developments to jump up and talk to us about their project. Thank you. Give me a second, I'll do what I can.
Blanking the screen. Sweet.
Okay, and now we need to go to here.
Maybe come over this because then we can share.
Here.
Did you say you had a clicker as well?
Yep,
Exciting technology.
you can go back to the left goes back to the front.
Okay.
Where are we? This one. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
That's what we'll share. Now, just bear with me. For all those watching along at home, I apologise, but it's just one of those nights. So that's what I'll put here. Full screen. Full screen. Right. And now I need to share that. Where did I? Nope, not there. Where's the? Oh, there it is. Sorry. And I want to share. Where's the app gone? Screen one, screen two, whiteboard off. It's there. Okay. So if we go there, let's go. Try that again. Portion, true audio, PowerPoint. Oh, this is one of those nightmare things, particularly if you're a quote unquote an expert in these things. That's just very sad.
Go to files and browse the file.
No, that's not a winning plan. Right, let's press on, at least with the slides we have here, and while that's happening, I'll
Excellent.
work on the problem.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you so much to the council for having us tonight. It's a real pleasure to be able to present. So my name's Elizabeth Judd. I'm a director at Judd Studio Architecture and Urban Strategy, and this is my fellow director, Nathan Judd. And we're here also with Matt and Emily from Core Developments to talk to you about this proposal. So we're here to talk about, great.
Trust me. Yeah.
Core Developments proposed development for blocks 5 and 6 on section 249. And you would know this as the site that fronts the grasslands at the southeastern part of the town centre.
Canberra Way and Manning Park.
That's right. So
Thank you.
this is now not working, so I'll just pop over. this side.
Okay, go again.
Great. Okay, so we're going to very quickly run through what the brief for the project has been. Talk about the site analysis, what's led to the master planning and the overall intent of the master planning for the site. It's quite a big site. Then we'll talk about the architecture and the design response and how the buildings will look on the site. And then finally, we've got some time for questions. So I think we've got about half an hour altogether, Peter was saying, so we should have enough time. So the brief for the site was to have a mixed use development of over 300 dwellings, and that's in keeping with the deed requirements for the sale of the land. The block itself is quite big, it's over 17,000 square metres. We're conscious that it's part of the town centre transition precinct, so it's important in terms of that context of how the built form should sit in that site. Our brief was to deliver quality architecture and quality open spaces as well, not just for the residents, but also for the surrounding community. That there should be really great connections to the town centre and to the grasslands surrounding there. And to also be conscious of the interfaces to the town centre and the importance of having a mixed use precinct, and also acknowledging the future linear park that will be running to the west of the site. So look, you all know this area really well, but just for context, this is the site here. And in terms of how we were thinking about it in the context of the broader town centre, we're very mindful of the proximity to the centre of the town centre, to the light rail line, and also to these beautiful grasslands and the natural elements that are there. Importantly, the site, although at the moment it's greenfields and quite a blank canvas, we wanted to look at the future connections that would be running to and through the site. So these are really important in terms of the master planning and how the buildings are laid out. In particular, as Peter referred to, this future linear park connection, which has been identified by in the planning framework, and all of the public transport connections, the tram, and potential future pedestrian and cycleways as well. So it's a really fantastic site in terms of its connections to the broader Gungahlin area and to the town centre, in the central town centre. We look at the opportunities and constraints on the site when we're thinking about where the buildings should go and how it should be laid up in terms of the open spaces. There's a lot here in terms of what we looked at, the opportunities and challenges. Predominantly, there's opportunities with this site. So we're really taken with the potential of it. And primarily, there's relate to the views that are across the public space, the connections, as I said, the new park, and also potential for some really exciting commercial activation where there's interactions with the linear park. Because we're imagining in the future, people will be getting on and off the bus here, walking up towards the town centre, walking up towards the tram. So really great opportunities along this edge in particular. Because of that, within the office, we started to think about the potential for thinking about as a walk street typology. So really this is about creating pedestrian connections through the site rather than just a series of roads cutting the site up. This has been done really nicely in Venice Beach in LA, where they've got quite dense development, but within the development, they've got these lovely pittons with gardens and things fronting onto them and some nice landscaping on the edge. So that's what was driving the master planning for the site in terms of how we were thinking about it.
It's the way we thought about the cars, and the way of pulling cars in underneath into basements and getting them away from a ground plane that people could use in a pedestrian sense or family friendly, child friendly, that connected people in a more neighbourhood sense, almost sitting a whole bunch of buildings within a park sort of general idea. But yeah.
So just to go through the basic planning, just lost it, Peter. Thank you. We're back. To get a sense of the uses on the site. So as I said, it's quite a large, it's 2 blocks and they're quite large. So within this area, it's predominantly terrace housing, and there's a mix of 2, 3, and then at this corner, 4 and 5 stories. And then there's the apartment housing through here with a commercial core at that point fronting onto the linear park. And that's also in response, importantly, to what's going on this side at the edge of the town centre, which is predominantly single level and 2-storey residential housing. And then, of course, the grasslands here. So we're mindful of not having too much high level density fronting along these elements to try to consolidate it within to one portion of the site. Sorry, I can't click it along again. Great. In terms of where the pedestrians and cars are running, the yellow zones are pedestrian only zones. And then there's this service road, which means effectively if you're moving in, your removalist van could come through or emergency vehicles can come through here, but otherwise this is a pedestrian zone as well. Cars come in and zoom around through here, not zoom, quite slowly move through. And then there's basement entrances here and here. This is parking that's already provided at the moment, which is great. And these are also parking areas for visitors. The landscaped areas align with the pedestrian areas. So the green areas are public landscape spaces, and then the orange spaces are private courtyards and private open spaces at the ground level. As part of the design process, we've had a presentation to the design review panel as well, and there've been a number of points that were raised by the panel, which we've taken on board. We've summarised some of them here, but they were interested in seeing further diversification of the types of buildings in here, and predominantly that relates to getting some variation in heights through here, creating more of a point of interest at this corner as well, so that was different there. Thinking about the legibility for pedestrians through here. So this top plan is the original and this is the updated. So they were concerned about some of these long pedestrian connections through here and where you might meet unpleasant people at the end, and trying to avoid those sorts of situations. Also to consider the basement planning and location of the waste enclosure, which previously I think we had up there, and that's now moved. So the current plan has changed. There've been quite significant changes based on what the NCDRP recommended, and trying to consolidate and really improve these public spaces in particular, and the way that this service road can access and improve legibility through the site. But,
yeah, I think we probably in the first instance made something that's maybe a bit porous, a bit confused in the way that people didn't know whether it was their space or whether it was the communal space. So now it's very logical that we have a couple of village greens, in fact, there's inboard from those village greens, that we've got a nice service road so that when people move into their dwelling, they can get a removalist vehicle quite close to where they're living. That's really only an incidental use. So that's a good, nice hard space that connects through the development. Yeah, so that sort of led us to sort of think about, and then sort of varying heights, mixing up our 2 and 3 stories, really working with the fall. There's about 6 metres fall across the site from one side of it to the other. So it's actually not just flat, it's actually got some variety and variation as you move through it.
So this very complex looking ground floor plan is the current ground floor plan. Just to give you a sense of the different uses across the site, I might let you talk to that quickly, Nate.
All right, so we were really careful about the way we wanted to bring vehicles into the site. So we have sort of basically 2 driveway connections here and here. And that let us bring our parking in, resolve all our compliant parking, visitor parking, those sorts of things. Then, you know, we had this sort of service lane that sat behind the front terraces. And so we've really built a good, strong street edge to Kamilleri Way and Manning Clark as it wraps around. We've got a cold shell apartment building, which people can buy an apartment and choose to design or fit it out how they'd like to. So we want to create a bit of variety between 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, different sort of product offerings within the development. We've developed these village greens that sit, and that dwellings both have a front yard, a village green and a backyard. So there's this real sense that there's a lot of shared space and a lot of activity for people that are living in this particular development, and this porosity. And this is our third sort of larger communal space between. We've developed a lot of 2-story, even 1-bedroom loft apartments in the base of this larger building, which has then given people the ability of, again, a further type of dwelling choice. This in and out sort of satisfies the parking or the waste gods and the way that we have to resolve them, and keeping that truck in and out cleanly away from the street. But it's also giving us the opportunity for visitor parking to sit along here and sit along here, which sort of helps people that are coming to the site to see friends, or people that are choosing to sort of engage in our commercial offering, which is about 600 square metres. And we're really interested in we've bent the building into this corner of our site so that the linear park, which runs through here and here, really has this strong commercial relationship to that space. So Core at the moment are looking at different operators that might run something. You know, it could be a restaurant, it could be another community kind of venue. But that, when that comes to pass, it'll give a nice anchor to our linear park. We've had sort of preliminary conversations with SLA about what they're trying to do, and sort of put our hand up and said we're a stakeholder and very interested in becoming involved in that.
Probably it's worth noting as well that one of the challenges for the site at the moment, and the challenges in interpreting it, are that it's sitting in a greenfield space at the moment. So when you're looking at the development and the density and the massing within it, you have to remember that all these sites will be developed to a similar scale around there and on the other side of the park. So it's a really exciting opportunity to set a standard for creating some activation along that linear park. So it's not just dead open space, but there's something happening there and people are moving past and stopping and engaging with it.
That's right. This is as we move up to the next level of development. You can see we've got double height spaces through the commercial. So we're trying to create great strong volumes, and these are sort of the loft levels of these one bedroom style loft apartments.
And importantly, these are deep root zones. So this is where we can actually get larger trees as part of the landscaping and some meaningful landscapes through these spaces as well.
Yep. This just sort of shows the way we sort of set aside the deep rooted planting areas between and sort of run our parking sort of from these two driveways. Even in the front courtyards of the terraces, we're looking at trying to create deep rooted planting zones.
Yeah. And all of the terraces have their parking underneath. So as Nathan said, we tried to pull the garages and things off the street to create a better street feel and put the parking underneath those dwellings. Of course.
How many spaces have you allowed for 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments?
We've worked to the question.
The question was how many car parking spaces have been allowed for 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments?
Yeah,
yep.
So 1 bedrooms we've allowed 1, 2 bedrooms we've allowed a minimum of 1.5, 3 bedrooms we've allowed 2. We're about 20 spaces or 15 spaces over the parking generation rates at the moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
The reason for the question is that when you look around all these townhouses and apartments along Henry Kendall and Lane,
yep,
there are not enough parking people park on street alone.
Mm.
Now that's going to happen here without a doubt.
Yep.
And there won't be space.
So the comment was made that at the moment there's not enough car parking spaces provided as part of new residential housing, and that there's a concern that would happen here as well. So I suppose the response is that we're providing in excess of what's required. And in addition to that, there is some really great visitor parking already along it's Camilleri Way,
yeah,
and within the site as well. So that's of benefit too, that it's not another narrow suburban street or residential street. There is that additional parking already provided.
You get several people in even one bedroom and it escalates as you go 2 and 3 bedrooms.
I guess in this development, we're also hoping that our proximity to light rail and sort of that porous ground plane and the
light rail is not 100% as justified in the application. The closest would be maybe 300-400 metres, 400 metres for the nearest tram stop from this development. So you need to get the facts. People, when they're looking at this, you need to understand that this is involved.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, next time, if there are any more questions, just give me a chance to get more microphone.
Oh, we can run that out.
Anyways,
I'll give you that back if you like.
Okay, right. This block is pretty close to the not the central, not the end of the line, but the stop at why am I drawing a blank? And Manning Clark.
So there's that spot there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I live very close to you.
Yeah.
Do you want to give the
Okay.
microphone to-
Right. No, sorry.
So that's
not,
It's about, from that point in the site, it's about 200 metres.
No, it's far in excess of 200 metres. That's what I'm saying. You wouldn't get anything under 300 metres, it's probably 400 metres.
Okay.
I
Well,
walk it every day.
Well, it's, yeah, we've measured to that point.
Well,
And there is also the linear park that's running through here in the future will create a full connection through. So
When that other development occurs, that'll all be blocked off.
no, so what's required here, this pink line here is actually required under the territory plan and under the planning framework and the future proposed changes as well, to be a dedicated pedestrian cycle link through. So it's actually reserved land through there to be that connection. So this is the linear park that SLA has been talking about as a connection through, which is really great because there should be a direct connection through to make it easier. So
Okay, so, Leanne, next.
Hey, so you mentioned that you've allowed more than the car parks required. Who determines what's required?
So that's the planning authority, and there are parking guidelines that are in place for all new developments in Canberra. So all developments should comply with them.
Yep. And I noticed in your picture before with the commercial section, there was, I think, 12 car parks, 6 on each side.
Yep.
How big is the commercial space going to be? And is 12 car parks enough?
no, sorry.
500.
It's about 600 square metres and it has a generation rate of 5 per 100 spaces. So we've provided commercial spaces within the basement as well as some commercial spaces along the ground.
So visitors can go into the basement as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
And on the road, you said there was already car parking along that road. Are they blocks of like 3 car spaces from memory?
Yeah,
Is that
roughly.
right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's, where's the site plan? So
Still not
there's, I think
enough.
that's 2, that's 2, that's 3, that's 3, 2, 2, 2.
No,
So-
that's right.
And they're also up here as well.
Yeah, and they only build.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then over here to,
Yeah, hello. Look, it's probably beyond the scope and you'll probably say it's too expensive, but in a lot of places, you just go down another level, add another level of car parking, maybe up at the top end.
So there's 2 levels now. It's a good suggestion.
Okay, 3
Yeah,
levels.
so there's the 2.
So over on the left-hand side, because that's under the largest apartment block and the commercial space.
Yes.
And if you overdo it, then you could maybe lease out the spaces that are extra or something, but at least it would, and the planning guidelines, I think a lot of Gungahlin demonstrates that they're woefully out of date and inadequate because of the expense of real estate. And hence, as the other gentleman pointed out, the landlords pack in as many people as they can to, or the people living there have to pay the rent.
Mm.
So I don't think the guidelines are worth a bit of a pinch, really.
The other thing is there is also 5 visitor spaces as part of the development just for the straight residential. Yeah. So there's also that for people that are coming to the site. You hope that residents don't use those, that it's visitors that use them. But yeah.
It's probably just a good point. Just in terms of the parking rates that are generated under legislation, they account for not only the direct occupants of the apartments, but also visitors to a development. So when we talk about total car park numbers, we have actually gone above and beyond the generation rates as stipulated by government, which actually accounts for all types of users within the development, be they permanent occupants or visitors to occupants within the development. So I guess the commercial reality is for us as a developer, the end user and the end user's experience is paramount to a successful development. And we acknowledge that car parking is ultimately a challenge that we face in Canberra with regards to that. But there's not, I mean, the commercial viability of the suggestion, I guess, of going another level of basement really isn't something that we're able to do when you look at the whole process and we're not actually able to. So obviously once a units plan is registered, we are no longer the custodians of that land, in which case we no longer have the right to lease out car spaces or so any car parking that is in excess of allocations to units or subsidiaries to units, we lose control over. So they then become control of the owners corporation. So when you start to contemplate ideas like that, and don't get me wrong, as the commercial reality is we do contemplate solutions like that, but the responsibility and management ultimately then falls with the owner's corporation, how they're allocated, how they're managed, and it just becomes a really tricky and binding process. So I guess the crux of that is we do try and maximise parking wherever possible. We've even gone to the extent of flagging with the SLA that part of that linear park and where it doglegs into our site, there may be potential for some further on-grade parking spaces to be allocated in that location, almost in aid of any potential further visitors to the site or anyone who's using the site as a destination to support that commercial use, so that you're not actually interfering with the commercial visitor generation rates for the apartments themselves.
But just on the parking thing, it's not your intention in your actual development application to seek a variation from the obligations of the parking and vehicle access code. All right, so that's a good point. Yeah, just sorry, quick, one more quick question.
Sure, yep.
Sorry.
One more about the parking. The service slip lane that you've created, how will that be managed going forward to stop people from overstaying?
So we have basically a bollard system. We basically have a bollard system, so you don't, the body would be managed through the body corporate, and they'd have to know that you were coming, and that was, you were accessing it on a legitimate basis.
How does emergency services get through there?
So I guess in that instance, in the instance of any sort of emergency situation, there obviously the strata managers generally have someone on call, but there would also probably be in some of the service locations and the emergency service locations, such as the fire cupboards, there'd be the option for a key box for emergency services to access to be able to remove those bollards in emergency.
Right, sorry. Yep, Peter. Hang on. I'll come to you.
We're getting the work out. Look, you may have felt you've already answered this, and apologies if you have, but the ratio, the car parking allocation 1, 1.5, 2 with respect to 1, 2, 3 bedroom townhouses, is that the current standard approach across Canberra?
Yes, it is.
Then just to qualify that, it
Yep.
depends on which zoning your land sits in, and whether if you're in outer suburbia versus a town centre versus the middle of the city, it does vary a little bit.
So clarify, this is RZ2 or 3?
CZ5.
C,
Yeah.
because of the commercial, of course. So if that's the case and it's been applied previously, we really don't have a good, we have a poor example of parking allocation, which may unfortunately be repeated in this development.
I think that's incorrect to say that, because I think you need to take it from, or not really.
Oh, okay.
I think it's incorrect to put that forward, because these guys are commercial. They're trying to make money out of this development. They wouldn't be doing this, and they wouldn't be doing it in the way that they're doing it, which is to represent community values and to represent what the community is asking for, without having the ability to make money. So from a private perspective, it's not their fault.
I know it's circular. Thank you. I'm just pointing out that the ratios that you're adopting for medium to high density residential have unfortunately demonstrated a lack of parking. That's what's going to be repeated.
We're trying to circumvent some of those issues by providing more than is required, but I think it's an issue beyond us.
It's also worth knowing that on similar sites to this, people are putting 600, 700 dwellings, even not too far from where we are. We're providing sort of a reasonably low scale solution with 2 and 3 story terraces across a lot of the sites. So I guess we're providing a very, family friendly, quite a desirable product in the market. There's obviously, it's sort of almost a third, 2/3, a third townhouses and 2/3 apartments. So it is and we've sort of taken on board that we're a transition zone into, we're obviously on the edge of the town centre, but we're transitioning down to a more residential interface. So the developer's taken this idea that they want to do more of a kind of high quality, lower scale, pedestrian friendly, integrated development, obviously with some density that relates to the linear park. So in terms of the traffic impacts, I guess my point is that they could have been quite exacerbated by a larger scale development that may be permissible on the site. So in this way, I think we're trying to do quite a sensitive development in that sense. I guess we also have the benefit that there isn't an adjacent development on the other side of the road. So the pressures of two similar competing developments, it may be that as we're on the edge that things pan out.
Better.
I guess just also to refer back to a point that Peter made earlier around us as a developer not having an intention to try and vary our parking requirements. Not only have we met the minimum or exceeded the minimum parking generation rates as stipulated by the current planning system, there are other sites that fall in town centres all around Canberra who generally utilise the access to public transport and try and then argue that they don't need to have as much parking. So I guess we're kind of, and not to use anyone else as an example, but we are trying to go above and beyond, I guess, the benchmark that the current planning legislation stipulates.
Over to Henley. Just on the example Matt's touched on there, on our website's an article about the DAs for the cinema site, which did make a case that I don't need to build as many car spots underneath the cinema because there's plenty of parking nearby. And you can see our position on that. Henley.
So this slide and the next slide just talk to what the design intent is for the buildings and the look and feel for the spaces. So Nathan, you might want to talk to this briefly. We've touched on some of this already.
I mean, this is sort of a view, the top view is just one of our early views looking down our potential service road. There's the village green off to the right. You can see that there's a sort of a variation in scale of 2- and 3-storey townhouses. The apartment building is sort of sitting at the end of our pedestrian street. So our idea is that this is a very kind of integrated, walkable neighbourhood, that there's a sense of being pulled away from the hustle and bustle a little bit within this zone, and that it becomes a neighbourhood in and of itself. And that's sort of, also reflected in this other image, early image of how we're treating these village greens with deciduous trees, stepped planting, paved areas, sort of incidental, as well as people having their own private open space addressing these areas. So in terms of this typology, there's quite a much higher level of amenity than you'd normally get. There's no traffic noise. You've got a front yard, a backyard. You've got access to a pleasant village green. So we think we've sort of talked at some kind of key Canberra examples, like Urambi was one that sort of came out of the kind of the 70s, and we wanted to kind of create something that was a little bit more walkable and a little bit more pleasant, and something that was a bit more neighbourhood based, really.
And we should note, just for clarity, that these are just, images of work done to date, but there is detailed landscape planning being done. So this is just a reflection of the general feel, but this is not the final landscaping.
Yep. Okay, this is sort of showing sort of the variation. If you look at this picture of the different scales of buildings, 2-storey, 3 stories, then we've got our 7 stories that's sitting on a plinth, the higher apartment building sitting up behind, communal open space for the apartment building sitting on top of that building. We're just sort of trying to create a kind of bit of a mixed up kind of streetscape, not sort of having something that's just all the same height, all the same mass, all kind of maxed from one end to the other. We want this real sense of stepping and flowing. Here's sort of the way that the apartment building pushes these fingers out towards the street and out towards the grasslands. A sense of the 2-storey, 1-bedroom apartments that we're quite happy with, that have double height space and courtyards that relate to the street. And then we're sort of looking at, you can sort of see our stepping and strategy of working down a real kind of neighbourhood approach. We didn't want a sort of a one size cookie cutter approach down the street. We're using the falls, and then we've been encouraged to do this cold shell sort of apartment building on the corner, which again has the opportunity for people to kind of have a bit of a blank canvas and create something a bit different for themselves, which is something that we did in Kingsborough a couple of years ago, and people really love that opportunity to personalise their own spaces. So here are just sort of some elevations that just sort of show, sort of as we work through the different scales and materials. We really want a kind of varied palette of materials as well between buildings, from basically metal cladding, brick, gabion walls, high quality kind of balustrade treatments, whether they're kind of vertical pickets or perforated aluminium. So we're sort of also then exploring different material languages in our buildings so that there's a sense of diversity through the development.
And importantly, this shows where the interface is with at the park as well. So where these commercial spaces are going to be interacting and creating activation at the ground level. So you can kind of see at these points where they'll open up out onto the green space.
Yeah. Here, we need to wrap it up. Okay.
Yep.
Here's just where the apartment building steps down to relate to the Camilleri and the grasslands. And then there's this split building that's then relating to our pocket park and linear park, which wraps around here. So we really wanted to provide overlooking and passive surveillance onto those spaces and really kind of celebrate them. You can sort of see, that's all right. And you can sort of see that even within the apartment building, they have a very large communal open space that's quite flexible for the residents to use. This is just showing our overshadowing of the development, doesn't impact on any neighbours. And then we're basically 100% solar compliant with our townhouses, and we're pushing towards 70% solar compliance with our apartment building as well. So at the moment.
Just have one more here and one more.
Thank you very much. So with your shadow thing, so you're saying with your model, it's no way gonna, with your, the up and down model, so it's no way the shadow gonna be on the small townhouses?
Oh, it will. It's sort of, it moves through the day, depending on what time of the day. But we've generally tried to pull it away, and there's a space between us and, or basically between the apartment building and the townhouses. The townhouses are sort of, but they're largely untouched, just the way that the orientation of the site and the way that we've set the building up. You can sort of see that, that generally the shadow is falling away from the townhouses. Yeah.
Right. And with how many car parks we have in total?
You're putting me a bit on the spot. I think I've got it written down. And where are we? We're 560, give or take at the moment.
Have you done the traffic modeling to see what's going to happen in the peak hours, where the traffic going to be, and where's the bottleneck?
So that's just underway at the moment as part of, as we're sort of pushing this basically towards and evolving it. Yeah, that's right. So we've got a good traffic consultant involved at the moment who's writing that report for us.
Sorry if I missed it.
Yep.
You said you have only 12 car space?
No, we've got 600 square metres of commercial, and then we've got the generation rates that give us that number of car parking spaces we're supposed to have, which I think is about, it's about 30 or so. And then we're looking at how we're providing that, whether we're providing that part of it in the basement, part of it on grade as well. Yeah, that's right.
So it'd be around 60, did you say?
About 30, depending on how we.
And what kind of commercial do you guys, is it going to be like a Aldi kind of things, or is it like a community hall, or it's
as mentioned before, and our commitment to the end user and the end product, we're currently running an EOI to seek select operators so that we can actually curate that experience and make sure it's not just dead end retail that sits there and is empty. So at the moment, we're going through a select EOI process to try and find the right operator for that space.
Like, is it quickie? Super quick? Okay.
Right.
So I would actually like to commend the design actually, that I know you're stuck in a high rise there, but everyone has to, everyone wants a high rise. But you've got a lower buildings, and I'm very interested in this transition initiative. And maybe Peter might want to chime in. Is that transition initiative part of your design, the company, or is it part of the new code for that particular area?
No, so I guess there's two questions. Where the permissible height at the moment, it's 18 metres high, and then a 30-degree envelope that kicks off on the sides of the development. We're mindful that there's a draft variation on its way through. We're also mindful that there's a new territory plan coming imminently. So we're also mindful that under the deeds that this land sits in, that we have to move forward and deliver this very, very promptly. So we've designed it to the rules of the day. But when we looked at the development, we thought in a sensitive way, why would we build a really big building, you know, at the far end of the site where we've got single story and double story residential and the grasslands? So I thought, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to consolidate our density to support that green spine and that green park.
I
that's
think that's
closer.
good.
And then we're going to step down to very much a lower scale. So a bit of variety, some variety, don't get us wrong, but
No,
yeah.
but you can see by that. So I'm just saying you're the first developer that's come and presented to build buildings that's actually had a transition that recognise it's not all about the town centre, it's about residents on the other side.
Yeah.
Unlike our Manhattan block in another location of Gungahlin, which is happy to have 23 stories next to a residential development.
Yeah.
So a thumbs up.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. All right. So thank you, Team Core, for coming in.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the work done. Just a reminder, this is part of the pre-DA consultancy process, so there still will be a DA that goes out and people will be able to comment on the DA as well. So thank you for that. Now, the next topic we're going to embark upon is microforests, something I've sort of, the name just captures your attention. And Lisa Codrigan from Casey has been working on a project to get up a microforest in Casey, but is part of a larger Canberra-wide initiative on microforests. So without further ado, I'll ask Lisa to go on. Okay, I'll give you the microphone and I'll panic about dealing with
And
that.
see how that goes. You did the spiel I was going to do while you were setting it up. So I'll say thank you for having me tonight. As Peter said, my name is Lisa Codrington. I work locally as a freelance social sustainability consultant, and I'm heading up the initiative for the Casey Microforest, which is the first microforest that we're looking to do in the Gungahlin region. There have been 3, though, that are already underway around Canberra. You may or may not have heard of them. The first one was in Downer, and they've reached planting stage already. The next one off the ranks was in Watson. They've had a successful crowdfunding stage, very successful, which we'll get into. And then Holt also has had a successful crowdfunding as well. And they've just done some more community consultation. We are the next suburb off the rank and the first one in Gungahlin. So it's generating a little bit of interest. So I just thought I'd let you know what microforests are as a general introduction, and then also where we're up to, what we've been doing online, and all the stuff that's been happening from that side of things and what's next. All right, so outline, as I was just saying. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what is a microforest, what they do, why Casey, where are we up to, and all this survey recently as well. I think because of my background as a social planner, I kind of thought it's an ideal opportunity to run a survey. So I did that. And then what's next, and then how you can get involved if you would like to. Are you controlling or am I controlling? You are. Okay. Excellent. So a microforest, has anyone heard of a microforest before? A few people have. Oh, excellent. Well, I'll go through it briefly just so we're all on the same page. So a microforest is a dense pocket of climate-ready native vegetation that cools the local environment, provides habitat, enhances community well-being, and gives hope for the future. So microforests can also be paired with other landscape features like nature-based play, food, pollinator or bush food gardens, and compost systems. And that depends on what the community are wanting to see. So we go through a process with the community later on to see which of these they would like to see in there, and we design accordingly. It's a photo there of the recent planting done at Downer. So you can see the various sizes of plants. So there's some really small kind of grassy plants in there, as well as some larger plants, and they all grow at different rates as well to form like a unique ecosystem in and of itself. All right, so microforests can be very small as a couple of car spaces, but the ones that we're doing in Canberra are a fair bit bigger, located in open space and usually grassed areas at the moment, to try and do a little bit more with them. So they're planted with multiple layers of plants. So trees, fast-growing shrubs, lower shrubs, grasses, and plants for damper areas. And the structure changes over time with its life cycle. So you'll have some that are faster growing, they grow up pretty quickly, and so you get like a really great result to start with. And then some of those lower lying plants will kind of die off a little bit, and then you're left with some of the larger trees in the end. It's inspired by a Japanese botanist called Miyawaki, while allowing for more Australian native plants. So he obviously had, it was a more humid environment where he developed his way of doing it. But here in Australia, we're really wanting to focus on native Australian plants, and also those that are climate change ready, so suited to drier environments as well. And just a couple more photos for you. This is of the downer. So we're ripe with photos of downer because it's the one that's happened. So the community getting involved just over here with the various sizes of plants. And there's a lovely drone image done by David Jenkins, which shows the whole over the site area. So you can see that's quite a bit larger than 2 car spaces. How large we can go depends on the kind of funding that we're able to generate. So that's a little bit dependent on that way as well. All right, so the benefits of a microforest, why are we interested in them? So particularly at the moment, obviously climate change is very topical. We've just heard that climate change is not getting any better. The planet is warming, we're to blame. And so we need to do what we can to kind of offset that amount, particularly in urban environments. So microforests, they cool the local environment and they provide, so particularly in concreted areas, you've got raised temperatures from reflecting off buildings and concrete car parks and things like that. So planting dense vegetation is a way of offsetting that urban heat. So it's called the urban heat island effect. It also does some other things though. So it provides habitat for local wildlife. It also enhances community well-being. So there are benefits of being around nature. We all know that it feels great to go walking along trails and be outside. And so it provides a space for that. It gives hope for the future and something positive for the community to work towards. And also, as an aside, that trees improve property value. So it's pretty good for the local area to have additional trees planted as well. Next one. All right, so the process that we're going through, and is Edwina online, Peter? Do we have Edwina? We have Edwina online. So Edwina is the brains behind. This is Edwina here. So she's on mute and we don't have her face there. But this is Edwina. So Edwina heads up the Climate Factory, and it's her process that we're going through. So she is helping to support the whole process from behind the scenes, and she's developed a process that we go through, which has been quite successful in the other suburbs, and we'll be using her support throughout. Can I have the PowerPoint back on though?
You can.
Hello, I am here.
Oh, there we go.
Thanks. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Edwina.
Hi.
All right. So the Climate Factory is a landscape architecture firm. So Edwina is a landscape architect, and it's she's created the firm with the idea of creating climate cooling outdoor spaces. So it's a social enterprise. And the vision for the Climate Factory is to build a microforest in every urban hotspot in Australia. So she's been supporting me from the start of what we've been doing at the moment. She does the landscape plans if we have a successful crowdfunding, and helps with all of the coordination of that side of things as well. So thank you, Edwina.
No worries.
All right, and this is just an overview of the microforest that we've had already. So we've got Downer that was built in 2020-21. The crowdfunding raise for that was $23,000, and that was the first one off the ranks. A little bit of a test case to see if it's a successful model to use. Watson, again, and you've got Joni, Purdy, and Liz over there, pictured from the Watson microforest. They have had a really successful crowdfunding campaign. They had a $53,000 funds raised, and that was due as well to support from local businesses. So they're close to supermarket. I think IGA from memory, quite a large grant was given from them, or donation given there, and some other large ones, which meant that they've got a larger amount, which means they can do more nature play elements and things like that. So that's been great for them. Holt has only just recently finished its successful crowdfunding campaign. They've just done community consultation, which I was helping with, and their crowdfunding raised was $25,000. And they're also doing some grant funding proposals as well. I believe that Watson also did some grant applications and was successful in those. And Casey is next off the rank. All right, so why Casey? So as I mentioned, it's really, we're wanting to help fight climate change. And so if you look over here, this is the CSIRO's map of the urban hotspots. And you can see Casey up there marked in red. So red means that there's a greater land surface temperature. So there are urban hotspots around Canberra, and you can see that up there in Casey, we are in red. So we're a great location to be trying to offset that heating effect. So it'll be the first microforest in Gungahlin. As I've said, it's an identified urban hotspot. The community interest is high. We've gauged that through Facebook, and we've had some really great involvement so far, which I'll get into. And also over summer, we certainly noticed that wildlife and birds were struggling for water and habitat and really struggling in the heat. So I believe there's a crossover there as well, being on the fringe, and that they've got somewhere that they can go. All right, so where we're up to. So we launched in July. It was a bit of a spur of the moment thing, actually. I was just talking to Edwina, and I was on holidays with the kids, I think in Kangaroo Valley, and the idea of a microforest in Casey was mentioned on ABC Canberra, and things have snowballed from there. So we very quickly kind of started to run with that once the interest was shown. I basically put the call out on the KC resident Facebook group to see is there interest, because there's no point trying to run it on my own if there's not enough interest. And immediately there was a flood of responses and people are really interested in getting this up and going. So we've then created Facebook and Instagram pages where we're providing updates and photos of what is going on, and people are following along with that. So we've also gone through site options and looked at the various places within KC that the microforest could be located. We've had another interview on ABC Canberra very early one morning. I think it was 6:45 that I was chatting, 2 coffee. It was okay. I think the only conversation before that was grunts with my 10-year-old. And then suddenly I was kind of chatting on radio. So that was fun. We've drafted a budget and we've done some brand development. The community voted for that logo that you can see down there. It's the first time that it's come, and I kind of had done the green watercolor because I liked it beforehand. We've done a community survey, and we've already heard from Gold Creek Public School, who are also looking to support the initiative through some fundraising they're doing on site as well. This here was the online consultation we initially did for the locations within KC. So we looked at some possible locations marked here with X's with some notes around it, and invited the community to jump online and write their thoughts about the pros and cons on each site. I also then ran a bit of a Zoom call and kind of facilitated that conversation as well. And we came out with some front runners. The front runners for that were then taken through into the survey that we undertook, which I'll show shortly. Also been chatting to people out and about, looking at sites. And met out, this is at the Holt group over here down in the bottom, where we also met with some Indigenous people who were advising about how we can get Indigenous elders involved and make sure that we're consulting with Indigenous people right up front, and to be mindful of the way that we use the land and have that reflective of the way that traditional owners have, and potentially looking at bush foods or the way that plants are used from that side of things as well. So we're trying to get that happening nice and early. All right, I just wanted to give a bit of a snapshot of the survey that we did. It was quite a big one. I'm still sifting through the details because I only closed it on Friday. But the results that we got, we could see that the majority of the interest, as expected, is from KC, but we did get some interest as well from the surrounding suburbs, particularly from Ngunnawal, Taylor, Moncrief, and Palmerston as well came through. So some of the families, I think, from the Gold Creek Public School, because they've posted on the school page, they've popped over and given their thoughts on it as well, and they're certainly interested in supporting the initiative. I asked the question around what excites you most about getting a microforest, and the primary thing was actually to provide more habitat, followed by action against climate change, encouraging more bees. We need more trees in KC, to do something meaningful, native plants, and then community project and community gathering. All right, and so then we were left with kind of 3 locations. I don't know if I'm going to stand in front if I do this. So we've got 3 locations that we're looking at. The location that came as the most preferred is this block of land here, which is the block of land that the dog park is on in KC as well. It came through fairly substantially as the preferred block of land, but there is an issue with that block of land in that there may be potentially threatened woodland there. Having said that, the ACT government regularly mow it, and there's a dog park on there as well. So I'm trying hard to find out from the ACT government if it's going to be problematic to plan to build something there. The initial response was it wouldn't be great, but I'm just, because the community are so keen on it, as that being a location and it's so central in KC, we are looking at that. The backup option would be down here near John Crawford Crescent, which is close to a playground, and there's a big patch of grass located right next to that, which would work well. Doesn't seem to have services located on it, unlike up at Ronald Walker. There are some service markers for water mains and sewerage, so I think that's a little dicey as well. So option 1 is there, probably closer in underneath some really nice big trees there. Otherwise, we'd be looking to locate out here. And that depends on consultation and the options for approvals, really, and how likely we are to get it approved. The other thing that we're doing through KC is we're doing it as a bit of a pilot project to track social impact. So we've got that, we know that microforests are kind of help against climate change and to provide habitat. The other great advantage of them is for community wellbeing. So as part of the survey, we asked some questions around community connections. How connected do you feel in your community? How comfortable are you talking to your neighbours? How safe do you feel walking around KC? Do you have enough opportunities to meet others and volunteer? Do you often run into people that you know down at KC Market Town? How do you feel about your access to open spaces? Is there enough? And how positive do you feel about your future in KC? So we've got results now from 109 people around all of those markers, and the idea will be to repeat that survey to see if we've had a positive impact on socially within the community as well as a result of the microforest, should we be successful and be able to go ahead and build it. All right, so what's next for us? So I'm still, as I said, sifting through the survey results, and we've got a bunch of people who are volunteering, happy to volunteer their time. I'm making contact with those and getting that all up and running as well. We are seeking a meeting with a local Indigenous elder who lives in Casey, Auntie Violet from memory, and I will be trying to reach out to her through the survey who are keen to be involved in that. So we'll be running to get that process moving. Having meetings with local business owners, particularly in Casey Market Town, to make sure they're aware of the project and see if they'd be happy to support it. We will be recording a crowdfunding video in late August to get us to launch our crowdfunding campaign in September. Pretty much that's our main thing we need to do, as well as get some rewards up and running for the crowdfunding campaign. But we'll be looking to launch in mid-September at this stage and run the crowdfunding campaign for 6 weeks is what I think it will be, to make sure that we're going over that month cycle for businesses and keeping it open for just a little bit longer. From the draft budget that we've done, we will need to raise at least $25,000. But given that Watson raised $53,000, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I don't see why we can't do the same thing. In Gungahlin, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of community support, and I hope that businesses and people will get behind it. And I'd really like to see it be a bit of a kind of a showcase for Gungahlin about what we can do and how our community can band together. So I'm going to say that I'm pretty keen to see us raise at least $50,000. All right, how can you get involved? You and people online. So we've got the Facebook page, search for Casey Microforest Project. On Instagram, it's Casey Microforest, one word. We're putting together a team of community members. If anyone wants to get involved, more than welcome. Just chat to me, reach out on any of those channels, send me a message. I'm pretty friendly and happy to have a chat. If any Casey residents are here tonight or listening online, you're very welcome to be in the video. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, but having lots of people in the background also just shows the level of interest there is in the community. For everyone listening, watch out for the crowdfunding launch and support us if you can. And we are seeking business support or sponsorship through that as well. And that is my spiel. Has anyone got questions about the Casey Microforest?
Good on you, Cam. Which role you would have a question?
Was it snaps to you?
Yeah, I'll go for it. I'll take snaps. Yeah.
Do you get, or have you tried for any government funding?
I haven't yet. No, there are grants available, and like I said, the other microforests have been able to get grant funding through for that. I haven't had the chance yet to be able to look into that, but it's likely there may be some available.
Yeah, because it makes sense with all the development that goes on. So you knock down trees, clear land to get all the development money in. Surely they would then put back.
Yep.
And I noticed the other hot spot there is Gungahlin around the town centre area.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that's probably on your radar for a future project.
It is
maybe.
certainly on the radar for it.
All right. Well, be in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grasslands often show up as hotspots. All right, quickly, Peter. Just a bit.
Peter. Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Kane, Shadow Planning Minister. What level of, I guess, confirmation have you had from the planning department that this is a go-ahead project?
Yeah, it's TCCS that we've been talking to at the moment. We don't send through the formal written request for approval until we've had a successful crowdfunding campaign, because then we'll have the landscape plans done up as well. So all of that forms part of the process, as long as we need to show evidence that the community are happy to maintain the land as well. So one of the key concerns from ACT government is that they don't want to kind of give approval and then have it up and running and then have it not maintained. So we need to show that we've got maintenance plans in place as well. So there's a few steps we still need to go through to kind of get all that information together to get approval.
And I've been supporting Jennifer as much as I could with the Holt Microforest.
Yeah, great.
And from a planning point of view, I think this is a terrific idea, and I wish you all the success. And if I can help, I'm available.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Nothing online? No,
There's
there was
one
one
more.
question over here. Sneak over here.
Bit of an odd one. The Holt Microforest, their site that they've picked, they're coming into problems with dog feces from people visiting the playground, passing through, and it's being left behind right next to the playground in the area. Your site is directly next to the dog park. What do you think would result in such a finding like that?
Yeah. So it's not directly next to the dog park in that there's a riparian corridor that goes between where the dog park is. I am not sure, and I would need to check whether it's an off-leash area currently. I don't think so. I've certainly not seen off-leash dogs there as well. On my walk around, there wasn't any dog feces that I noticed there. So it hasn't been an issue from what I've seen there at the moment, but something to keep in mind. I have seen it pop up on the Holt Microforest page this week as well. So, yeah.
And just to check, Lynham Microforest, you didn't mention it. Is that part of the initiative?
No, I don't think so. Edwina, can you speak to Lynham?
Yeah. So the Lynham project was sponsored by Alicia Payne, and although it's called a microforest, it doesn't incorporate the water harvesting because there wasn't enough money. So we only had about $14,000 for that project. It's more like just a revegetation. So we've only got one built microforest, and that is the one on Cole Street, Downer.
Thank you.
It's like
No
a voice
worries.
from the heavens.
Oh,
It is. You're definitely coming over the loudspeakers.
It's working well. That's nice to see something working well from a technology point of view. All right. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you all.
Very
Thanks for
impressed by that project. There were some really great community initiatives going on in Gungahlin. It's really proud. As someone who tries to do stuff in Gungahlin, that sees things coming out of the woodwork, Friends of Yerraby, Microforest, and a few of the other things.
Yep.
So I think well done.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yep, just rip and go. So item 3 on our agenda today was an update on the master plan for the Canberra Hospital. I think I saw Harley earlier, but no. And talking about the update. Have you given me slides? Have you got slides? Okay, I'll need to get organised. I'll give you that microphone, Kevin. Oh, sorry, you're right. You sure?
I'll be really quick.
So I think that there should be 2 small. Sorry, that's my bad. I'm clearly not having a great evening. So let me just try and find it.
Thank you. While they're getting set up, hi Liz. My name is Liz Laper. I'm from the ACT Health Directorate, and I head up the infrastructure area. So we've been doing the Canberra Hospital master planning process. Thanks very much for having me again tonight. I first came to the Gungahlin Community Council when we opened stage 1 of community consultation on the master plan and had a chat, and we're now in phase 2 of the consultation. So we've taken all the information that we heard in the first round of consultation and brought it into the master plan. And I just guess to start with, I know that at the local community councils, we're often talking about things that directly impact straight onto your local community, like local developments and the microforest. But I just wanted to say thank you for having me, because this is all our hospital. It's our tertiary hospital for Canberra. It's the one that our region uses and everyone uses. We all hope that we don't have to use it, but we all get there. I think I've been in emergency 4 times this year so far. Not me. I have children who play sport, so I seem to always be there. Someone said to me the other day, "Do I recognise you?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm a frequent flyer on Saturday afternoons after sport." So thanks, Peter. If you can just pop to the next one. Just for a little bit of a history lesson, the Canberra Hospital was opened as the Woden Valley Hospital in the mid-1970s. So as you can see from that slide that's disappeared, it's all good. That was what the hospital looked like when it opened. And I guess the point of this slide is to show you that these buildings here in the centre of the campus were the original buildings that were standing when the hospital was opened. Since that time, the slide over on the right-hand side shows the hospital in about 2019. And as you can see, it's become a very congested hospital campus, but we're also seeing the original buildings in the centre of the campus still standing. So we knew that with the master plan, we needed to be planning for the future growth of our hospital campus, and also looking at the asset age and condition and what we were going to do about those buildings. Sorry, Peter. So just to orientate you, this is the Women's and Children's, the Centenary Hospital for Women's and Children's down here on the northern side. And this building up here is the adult mental health unit, and this is where the car park, the multi-storey car park is. So the project, the Canberra Hospital Master Plan is taking a 20-year look at developing the hospital. So it's a guiding document. It's not right down to the detail. It's meant to be flexible enough to sort of provide opportunities for the development of the site. I think when I was here last time, someone asked me if there'd been a master plan done for the hospital before. It might have been this gentleman in the front maybe, and I didn't know, but we haven't ever done a Canberra Hospital Master Plan before. So this is the first time we're doing it. Thanks, Peter. So we've looked at what the service planning looks like, what the demand growth for the hospital is over the next 20 years. We've looked at the buildings and the asset conditions, and we've asked the community as well what you like about the hospital, what you'd like to see improved. And it's really about looking at the campus as a whole and making it welcoming and usable for patients and staff. Thanks, Peter. So what we heard very quickly in phase one, car parking. We heard a lot about car parking. There's not a great deal of car parking on the Canberra Hospital site. So in one of my emergency visits this year, I did get a parking ticket. Outdoor areas, people wanting more outdoor areas, so the staff and people visiting the campus. Public transport, access to the site from public transport, and then accessibility and wayfinding around the site. So we're hearing it's hard to find a car park, and then when you get one, it's hard to find where to go. We've heard a lot about public and staff amenities, cafes, and the condition of the waiting areas that are in the hospital. Thanks, Peter. So we're out on phase two consultation. And we're doing a very similar consultation to phase one. We've got pop-ups and drop-ins at shopping centres and in local areas. We've got information and 2 options for the master plan on the Your Say website. And we're open for consultation until the 1st of September. And I really encourage everyone to pop on and have a look at the plans. Thanks, Peter. So just going back one. Sorry, Peter, thanks. We've taken a precinct approach to the Canberra Hospital campus. So we started looking at what we needed on the campus, what we've got on the campus, and looking at the functionality of that campus and putting precincts together. So the Women's and Children's Precinct sits down here on the northern end. That's where the Women's and Children's Hospital is now. We're saying this is the natural sort of expansion area for it. Similarly, the mental health precinct at the other end is where the adult mental health unit is now. So we're saying that's where it'll grow in the future. New precincts on the campus is an accommodation precinct up the top. That's in Gaunt Place, which is a sort of residential cul-de-sac, which is part of the campus. We've heard in consultation the need for residential accommodation for people visiting the site. And actually, there was something in the paper this week about people who come from the region need to stay near the hospital when they've got family in the hospital for long and short periods of time. So we're saying that's the logical place to put accommodation and build more accommodation for people to be staying at the hospital. Also a new education, research and training precinct. So we heard very strongly through consultation that this is a tertiary hospital, that teaching and learning is embedded in everything they do, but it's not really embedded on the campus. So the A&E Medical School is in there in a building currently, but we heard that there needed to be more education, research and training spaces on the campus so that that could be even more embedded in teaching our doctors and nurses. The acute hospital precinct is here in the centre. So this is the new critical services building, which is being built now, which has all the new emergency department and ICU spaces. And building 3 here and building 1, which is the large tower block, will always be part of that acute hospital precinct, but we're saying that they need to be redeveloped, that they're nearing the end of their useful life. Here is a new car park. So this is where the helipad is for the hospital now. It will move to the top of this building when it's built. And we're going to build a new multi-level car park down the northern end of the campus, and a new staff multi-level car park across on Yamba Drive for staff to access. Thanks, Peter. So here are the two master plan options that we have open for consultation now. So there's a lot of lines and drawings on these. So I really encourage you, if you're interested, to get onto the Your Say page with commentary about what it all means, and you can have a good look into it. It's a bit too much to go through in just one speech. But you can see this is just indicative of how the buildings might come together on the site through different options. There's a new entrance here off Kitchener Street under both of the options to try and take some of the traffic off this street, which goes past the primary school, which is here. And also to lead straight into this northern car park, which would eventually be built here. There's new pedestrian bridges from the car park across the road so that staff aren't having to try and get across Yamba Drive. There's a new pathology building, which we would like to get on with pretty quickly. We know that pathology demand is growing, not just because of COVID and all the tests that they're doing. And so we'd like to get on with that. There's currently a childcare centre on the campus here, which is again quite an old building and nearing the end of its useful life. So we've said there's a possibility of a childcare on this corner down here, but it also is possible that we could put a childcare centre up in the residential, near the residential development as well. So the master plan is meant to be flexible. It's not embedding right down for 20 years everywhere that everything will go, but it's giving a good indication of what the redevelopment of the campus will look like. Thanks, Peter. So on the website, you will see broken down different maps of how you move around the site and access and accessibility. So where the ambulance entrances are and how they would move around the site, where the logistics entrances are. We would put a logistics hub here, which is near Yamba Drive, and you'd be able to come in, go out. Thanks, Peter, and pop to the next one. There's also maps for pedestrians to show how you would move around the site if you were a pedestrian. Thanks, Peter. And public transport. So we've got a couple of maps showing where the bus stops would be and how the buses would get in and around the campus. Thanks. And car parking. So as I mentioned, near Northern Car Park, which reflects the feedback that we got that not only do we need more car parking, but it needs to be closer to where people are accessing their health services. So particularly the women's and children's. Many a time people have had to be dropped off in labour and their partners have had to run up here and come back. So we've heard very strongly there needs to be a car park down this end. But what we're also saying is, as you redevelop the Canberra Hospital campus over time, you should be taking the opportunity to put basement level car parking in. The site helps us. It's on a bit of a hill in both ways. And there's basements in these buildings. So as you dig them out and demolish those buildings and rebuild, take the opportunity to put car parking in there so people can come in, go straight up to where they're receiving their healthcare. Thanks, Peter. Open space. So here's just some indicative maps of the open space that you get. And as you can see, the hospital campus is really plenty big enough. It just needs to be reorganised a bit. And the assets that are on there, they're ageing. So this is a great opportunity over the coming 20 years to really redesign the hospital and provide some more open spaces. So all the green here, the darker green is where you'll see open space, and the lighter green indicates where you can have rooftop gardens that you can look out onto from some of the higher elements in the wards. Importantly, what that green space also does is provide us opportunity at the 20+ mark and beyond to add to the campus if we need to. So it's creating future opportunities as well. So we were really pleased as we went through this exercise to see that we didn't really need to expand the hospital beyond its current boundaries. So where are we? We are here, as the triangle says. So we're consulting on draft master plan options, and we're hoping by the end of this year, we'll have a final master plan to government for decision. We're not putting a deadline on that. We really want to hear what we get from community consultation, because if we don't hear good things, we'll start again. I guess this is just to reassure that once the master plan is finalised, there'll still be lots of opportunity to contribute to the projects that are happening on the Canberra Hospital campus. We'll still have to go to government for individual projects to commence for funding. We'll still be doing a lot of consultation with our clinical workforce and with the public, and we'll still have to go through DA processes. So the master plan, I guess, is that high level, and that's what we're looking at, but lots of opportunity. It's not the last opportunity to comment on what happens on the campus. Next steps, consulting till 1st of September. And as I just said, finalising the master plan, hopefully by the end of this year. Thanks, Peter. How to provide your feedback. We'll distribute this as well, but you can attend a pop-up or drop-in session. You can go to the website and provide your feedback, or you can email us as well at that email address. Where are we? We're at Gungahlin Library between 3 and 5. If anybody wants to drop in and see any of the master plan plans and talk to any of our planners, we will be there. Thanks, Peter. Thank you. Promised I'd be quick. Thanks. Any questions on any of that?
Yep. Thank you very much for doing this presentation. You were saying you're not really restricted with the ideas and stuff, so you could consider on the planning. So is there any restriction for that hospital to be on that spot, you know, the extension, all these things? Why can't you put it in Gungahlin where we don't have an existing hospital, so we can have it as a specialty of, you know, whatever we have it there.
Yeah.
Then we can have it as a special hospital over in Gungahlin rather than trying to fit everything in the limited space, because we're planning for 20 years and the population wise, we're going to be going crazy.
Yeah.
So have you ever thought about, you know, the limitation on the space and, you know, why not Gungahlin?
Yeah. So I think you move that hospital. There's been a lot of investment into it. You wouldn't just close it down and move it somewhere else. However, we're also doing the territory-wide planning and looking at the Northside Hospital as well. So we obviously have Calvary as well, but Calvary is, you know, what's called a general hospital. This is our acute hospital, and Canberra's not big enough to have 2 acute tertiary hospitals, but we are doing the planning for a Northside Hospital as well. But as far as you wouldn't close that campus down and relocate just because of the amount of investment that's happened there. We've got a relatively new women's and children's hospital there. The territory-wide health services plan has been done by my service planning colleagues. I might distribute, I don't know the website address off the top of my head, but that goes through all the services that are needed through the health system in Canberra and where they're needed, and looks at population growth, etc. And they've just done some consultation on that, and I think they're on their final draft of that. So I'll provide that back to Peter to give you a web link to have a look at that service planning too.
Yep, that'd be super handy.
Okay. Thanks for that. I didn't mean actually to close the existing one, but, you know, like in terms of expanding, so we could do the expanding here, and then probably the set of services, whatever available, can be there, and then we could build new things that needs to happen on this part of the world as well. Yep. So because my question is, like, because we're planning for 20 years, so we don't want the restrictions on the zoning or, you know, just to the limited space. So maybe we can look into the options of those things. So I was very curious to know whether you actually extension. So we'll leave the current one. So we're going to build a other part of the units, like in a different specialty things on a different area.
Yeah, I think so. 2 things on that. The government is really keen for us to be putting services closer to where people live. So not concentrating them in the hospitals, but putting them out in the walk-in centres and the health centres, etc. And I know there's planning happening for a new walk-in centre out in Gungahlin. So you're right. It's about what can we take off our hospital campus as well. You know, what we've been looking at, what's being done on the hospital campus doesn't need to be on the hospital campus, particularly if parking is an issue, etc. Could you deliver that service out of the Gungahlin Health Centre instead, etc.? I think the other thing that we need to think about is the workforce. So we've got doctors who deliver more than one thing. And so at the moment, they want their outpatient clinic and their inpatients that are in the wards and everything to be as close together as possible so they can move around and see everyone that they need to see, rather than sort of having to be at Calvary and then maybe out at Gungahlin for something and then back to do their surgery at, back at Canberra Hospital, etc. So we've looked at the functionality of trying to move things closer together for our clinical workforce as well. There is also planning going on for a Northside elective surgical centre at the moment too, which I think the government promised last year at the election, and that planning is underway now. And that's about getting elective surgery patients who are the sort of day surgery patients to not have to come into the hospital, but actually have a dedicated elective surgery centre on the north side that they can come and just have their day surgeries done and not have to go into the hospital environment. So there's things happening in the planning space.
So I understand you're certainly focused on the master plan for the Canberra Hospital site, but we'd be very keen to get an update from ACT Health on the three projects you touched on that are directly relevant to our spatial location. The Northside Hospital, the surgery unit, and an expand the additional walk-in centre. So there was another question here in the front.
Hi, Nathan Custer. You said in your speech just before that Canberra is not big enough for 2 acute care hospitals. So currently the Canberra Hospital has I think it's 670 odd beds. Mm-hmm. There is currently serviceability for up to 500,000 people. Currently, the population in the ACT is 462,000 ACT residents, but then services in excess of potentially another 100,000 over that, meaning that we're already over capacity for our current acute care in the ACT. So can you please elaborate why you say the ACT, which by 2030, which will have 513,000 residents in the ACT, that's 9 years away, 513,000, servicing once again upwards of 100,000 people, why we cannot have 2 acute care hospitals in the ACT?
So I think that's a service planning question, which is not my specialty on service planning, but I will say we are planning a new Northside Hospital, but when I say acute, it just means to the same level of tertiary trauma hospital. So there's still acute services offered at Calvary. If you have a stroke, you'll go to Calvary, you can go into their intensive care unit, etc. They've got an emergency department. But if you're in a car accident and you've got multiple traumas, you'll go to the trauma hospital, which is Canberra Hospital. To have 2 of those hospitals in such a short distance, there's something there about workforce. You don't want to be splitting your workforce, your trauma surgeons, etc., across 2 hospital campuses. So I probably used the wrong wording in saying the word acute. Calvary is still an acute hospital. It still does operations. It still services, ambulances go there, etc. It's more that trauma level of hospital that you wouldn't have 2 of in a small jurisdiction, just because you won't split your workforce over those 2 areas. So Calvary is still an acute hospital. I did use the wrong word. It still does all of those things, but Canberra Hospital is the trauma level hospital. So that is where your helicopters are going to come in from if there's a car accident down the coast, etc. But we are doing the planning for a bigger Northside Hospital at the moment. So there will be growth, and there will obviously be growth on the Canberra Hospital campus as well.
All right. Is it a quick one, Peter? We're very close to time.
All of mine are quick ones, Peter. Do you mind, have you further details on this proposed Northside Hospital, its location and the extent of its service?
Yeah, so we're doing that work now. So the government committed in the election last year to starting construction on that hospital in mid-decade. So we have said, yep, we need to get on with our planning for that hospital. So the territory-wide services plan, which I'll send the link through to, is the first step in doing the service planning so that we know what we need to put in the hospital. And the next will be, once we know what we need to put in it and where the growth is, then we'll start looking at locations. We've done some preliminary work on locations. Obviously, Calvary Hospital is the current Northside Hospital. We have a contract with Calvary that I think still has at least 70 years to run. So we've done some work to see if we can just build a new hospital. They're in a similar situation. The assets need replacing. They're of a certain age. I think they're almost the same age as Canberra Hospital. So we've done some work to see if we can just fit like a new hospital build on the Calvary site, where you'd build basically just a new hospital without disrupting their clinical services, and then put them in it. And we're also having a bit of a look around for greenfield sites as well, just to see what is out there that we could possibly use.
Is there any publicly available material on this proposal?
I'm not sure what's on our website at the moment. I'll have to have a look. If there's not something there, we should put something up there to let everybody know the work that we're doing.
Could you confirm that back to the council?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is something here on the website, but it's, I think, two paragraphs the last time I looked, which was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously of a high level of interest for all of North Canberra, but certainly
Yep.
for Gungahlin, it's been a hot topic for the 10 years I've been involved with the
Yeah.
Community Council.
So
But
yeah.
I am going to ask that we finish here,
Yep,
because
sure.
otherwise we're just going to run past my bedtime, essentially.
Yep.
So- All
Thank you. Thanks for
thank you
having
very
me.
much for coming along
Thank
and
you.
for the detailed update. There are some other questions I want to ask, but I'll follow up
Yep.
elsewhere. Thanks.
Come to our drop-in session or email me.
Not to worry about it.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
We have
Thanks.
promoted that on the Facebook page today. So, all right. And my apologies to the team for Evo Energy. You were next, but now last on the agenda. I apologise for that. This is all my carefully organised plans have gone to custard. So I'll get your slides up if I haven't lost them. Did you give me a stick or did you?
Emailed it earlier today.
Must be a moment.
We promise to try and keep it very quick for you all. While Peter does that, I'll introduce us. So my name's Alison Davis. I'm the Group Manager for Customer Delivery at Evo Energy. And my colleague with us is Darren Limbrick. He's our Strategic Account Manager. And Darren will talk a little bit more about what he does when he picks up the presentation. We're here tonight at the invitation of Gungahlin Community Council, really just to come up and say hello. I know last time I was at a Gungahlin Community Council meeting, I think it was in 2016. So definitely need to be coming to these more frequently. Really tonight, what we wanted to work through was some of the common questions and the common queries that we get from customers. And then hopefully we can come back sometime in the future and we can drill more into the interests of Gungahlin and what you want to hear from us. So if we can go through to the next slide, please, Peter. Keep this one pretty quick. So just we do find at Evo Energy that we do get a little bit of confusion about what it is that we do and who it is that we are. So this is an infographic from the Australian Energy Regulator and just talks about the electricity supply chain. So Evo Energy does have a gas network as well as an electricity network, but we'll talk tonight just about electricity. So we're a distributor, so we look after the poles and the wires, the cables that run underground, particularly in Gungahlin, and getting the electricity to people's doors. So that's where we sit with that yellow boxes in the middle. What most people that we talk to, when they think of electricity, they think of their retailer. So sending the bill out to the customer, talking to customers about their plans, about their consumption, that type of thing. And we'll skip to the next one when we can.
Great. Well, just while we're going to that, as Alison said, my name's Darren Limbrick. I'm the Strategic Account Manager at Evo Energy. So in my job, I spend a lot of time working with what we call our major customers, so really large users of electricity and gas across the ACT network. So I'm just going to talk quickly to this side, which is just gives you a bit more of an understanding, I guess, of what Evo Energy do. I think this is a really good representation of that. But just before I get into it, Hopefully you're all still awake there. I'm just going to go out to the audience and see firstly, who's actually heard of Evo Energy? Lots of people. That's great. No, that's really good because Alison said we do sometimes have some brand issues, I guess, in that sense, because a lot of people think of a retailer and they wonder who we are and what we do. So that's actually quite pleasing to see that. So as I said, this slide, I think, represents what we do quite well. A lot of people, when they talk about a distribution network service provider, which is what we are, think of, or the talk is of poles and wires. As you can see, we do a lot more than just poles and wires. There's everything from obviously maintaining power transformers, distribution substations, and of course, importantly, at the moment, we have over 2,000 customers connected across the ACT. 200,000, sorry. Yes, more than 200. So you might see us out and about in Evo Energy vehicles and trucks, out there during emergency events or out there conducting routine maintenance. So these are really important things that we do to help make sure we maintain the network and make sure that we provide a reliable quality supply to the people of the ACT. We also do a lot of work in the planning space, making sure that we're ready to meet the future growth needs of the ACT. I guess probably the last thing I'll mention is, and Alison already touched on that, is that probably the important parts for Gungahlin are really this underground distribution line area and the distribution substations, given that the entire network out here in Gungahlin is all underground. Cool. Next slide.
So usually when we speak to come out and speak to people, really what we're talking to people about is outages. I'm going to talk a little bit about reliability from an unplanned outage perspective. What you've got here is on the chart, shows you the what's called safety. So safety is an energy industry term, and basically what it means is the number of outages a customer will receive per year. So this is averaged out for the whole of the ACT. And what you can see here, so the financial year 2021 is the last dark orange. So each customer in the ACT, so it's 202,500, had just over half an outage last year. Obviously, you can't have half an outage, and Kevin spoke to me about one he experienced after last month's Gungahlin Community Council meeting. So we're always striving to reduce those. The target line that you can see across the top is where we aim to come below. So we're always striving to do that. And we'll click to the next one. The next one that we'll talk about is SAIDI. SAIDI is almost the same as SAFE, but it's about the duration. So how many minutes does a customer experience an unplanned interruption per year? And as you can see here, whilst our frequency rate went down, so the number of outages a customer will experience went down, the duration actually went up in the last couple of years. And some of those that I'll speak to are some of the larger interruptions we've had. So for example, in late June, early July, we had some customers in Canberra that were off for more than 30 hours. We had an enormous tree come down in a storm. That took out 2 poles, it took out some wires and required a little remediation work. Obviously, when you have trees and branches in our network, which thankfully in Gungahlin is not a concern, it does take some time to manage that safely. And that's where we've seen some of that duration go up whilst the frequency rate has gone down. Any questions so far from anyone? Yes.
I'm not familiar with the underground network. Is it fully underground for the Gungahlin region?
It is, yeah.
Thank you.
So you will see, and we'll show you some photos, presentation of what the assets that you'll see above ground look like, because it's really important to keep an eye out for them. But the cables are all underground. And we'll click on to the next one. Sorry, Peter. Definitely kept you busy this evening. Awesome.
This is mine.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm just going to talk you through quickly a couple of scenarios that you may face as customers within the ACT and perhaps the best way to manage that. So I guess the first and most obvious one, and Alison's just run through that, is what happens when you're in your house and the lights go off, so you come off supply. So what we generally recommend is to just go out and have a look at your switchboard if you can. That's obviously a good, or quite often a good first indicator of whether the problem might just be located at your house, or whether while you're outside, you can have a look around as well, and you might understand that that's actually a broader problem to the area that you live in. If you're off supply in your house, then what we recommend you do is to call our contact centre. So we've got the number up here. You can find all this information on our website. So we have a contact centre that's open and operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they'll be able to log your incident and talk you through the process of obviously getting someone out there to help you and restore supply as quickly as possible. If you do find you're a part of a wider outage, Alison's actually going to talk about some tools that we have on our website that will help you track and understand more about that. So I won't talk about that right now. The second one's quite important. What happens if you're in your house and you encounter a shock or a tingle? So that could be when you're touching your fridge, or when you're touching an outlet, or anything at all, really. So it's taps, exactly, taps. Absolutely critical, you call us straight away. So don't think about getting the electrician out next week to have a look at it. Call us straight away, because that generally is a really good indicator that there's an underlying issue that needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. So again, call through to our contact centre, and they'll then talk you through the process of helping getting that resolved. The last one, a little bit more obvious. You can see the tree smashing into the pole. So what happens if you damage one of our assets, or you come across a situation where you can see that one of our assets has been damaged? So what that might look like for you guys out here is a mini pillar being run into. So we're going to show you some photos of those in a second. This is happening more than we would like, so it's a good thing to talk about. Obviously, if someone runs into an asset, it means people are going to go off supply. So we want to stop that. And obviously it's in everyone's best interest that we keep the supply on and we avoid these sorts of situations. So again, if you run into that scenario, call through to our contact centre, and they'll be able to get a team out there as quickly as possible to work on that situation. Again, if you're looking for any of this information, you just go to the Evo Energy website. Cool. Oh, and this is me too. Just one more thing that we want to make clear. Obviously, if there's a medical response required, or any sort of really serious incident that you're dealing with, make sure you call 000 first. You can call us afterwards.
Wonderful. Thank you. So this is a mini pillar that Darren just talked about, an asset. This is actually in Crace, and this is from the 23rd of July, so quite recent. What happened here is a car has come off the road and has hit the mini pillar and knocked that over. Darren talked a little bit about shocks and tingles. Now, usually in your home, Evo Energy will attend to make sure that there's no issue coming from the network. And the vast majority of times, what that will mean is that the ACT electrical inspector will be a problem with the network. It's something in the home. What I wanted to point out here is I actually spoke to our supervisor that attended this site in the evening on the 23rd, and when he got there, that was still live. So part of this is being really careful. If you see a damaged asset, to stay away and call us straight away so that we can send someone out there. We always remind people to keep children and pets in particular away from damaged assets, because you cannot guarantee, just because it looks really broken, that it's not dangerous. So this one was live until we got out there. Our crews then isolated the supply, so they turned it off. That's when we had 55 customers from the Crace area lose supply for about 2 hours, while the crews did the repair work and got that all back on for everyone. It was a bit of an ugly weekend for the Gungahlin district. I think we had about 3 outages, including this one. But what we did notice, and it was called out specifically by a couple of our crew, was how patient the Gungahlin community was, and the fact that people actually reached out and thanked our crews for being out in such inclement weather, which was really greatly appreciated, particularly the crews that are out at all hours. They don't often hear that, and it was really nice to hear that from the Gungahlin community.
It's over to me. Okay, so this is kind of following on, I guess, with that safety theme, which is really important to us. And this is just to alert you to what we call dial before you dig. So it's really important that you understand if you're going to do anything around Evo Energy assets, that you need to contact us and find out a little bit more about them first. You can see some examples of those assets here. So that's a mini pillar. That's what it looks like when it's not knocked over by a car. And this is a substation as well. Obviously, in other areas, there's poles and things like that as well. But importantly, there's and especially in Gungahlin, as we've touched on already, there's a big network of underground high voltage cables, high voltage and low voltage cables. And it's going to be a really bad outcome if you're out there and you manage to put something through one of those cables. For the person involved, but obviously for the community as well, given, again, it's probably going to result in a loss of supply event. So we have what we call dial before you dig. All you need to do is go to our website. That's the way that you can then contact us through that. It's a free service. And what we'll then do is provide you with information to show you exactly where the Evo Energy assets are around the area that you may want to dig or potentially have some sort of civil work requirement.
Awesome. So we've talked a little bit about unplanned interruptions and what happens when something goes wrong. One of the things that we do to try and minimise those unplanned incidents is to do some critical network maintenance. So we have a program that runs all year that looks at our assets and does a lot of work to maintain and ensure that we're delivering a safe and reliable energy to the ACT. So if you are going to be impacted by a planned interruption, you'll be notified beforehand. So late last year, we started notifying via SMS. We've had very strong feedback that our customers are really finding that very helpful. We are also still sending out a letter to customers to let them know. We do also have a range of vulnerable customers that we do reach out to via the telephone to make sure that they've received their notification and to ensure that they understand how to put what's called their plan B into play so that they know where to go, they know how to handle these situations. And they're customers that may be on things like oxygen concentrators, they may require the heating or the cooling for health conditions, that type of thing. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Twitter in particular is good for outages. We'll tweet and also post on Facebook after hours as well. One of the big things I wanted to point out was our outage map. Peter, are you able to click on the hyperlink for me and we'll see if we can get this one to work? We'll see how we go. So this is just taking you straight through to Evo Energy's website, hopefully. Thank you. If we just scroll down a little bit. So as you can see at the moment, we've got 0 outages affecting 0 customers, yay. But we have this map. If you want to just come down so we can get the top bar in, that would be great, where it says, they're just the active and today. So earlier today when we were doing some planned work and we did actually have a fault, you could see that on the map and you can get more detail. But if we just go to today, this will show you everything that's happened today. So the P's are for planned, the U's are for unplanned. And if you just click on one of those, it'll pop up, doesn't matter which one, and tell you that this morning we had an interruption, started at 11:42. Went to 232. There was 234 customers that were affected by it, and it affected suburbs in Beard, Hume. I always say this suburb incorrectly, so I'm going to skip it. Symonston and Charlie. But what you can actually do if an outage, whether it's planned or unplanned, and you can see there the little polygon that shows you where that outage affected customers, right on the border with New South Wales. While an outage is active, there'll be a little orange button that says follow. And if you click that, you can pop in your mobile number and it will send you SMS updates. A lot of times, particularly in winter, people don't want to be home when there's an outage. They want to go out and they want to know when the service is restored. So we'll send you an SMS to let you know once the power's back on. So you can just see that one didn't go ahead today. Yeah, so that'll be it there from our systems. So you can work through and have a look at that, but it's quite a useful tool. It is mobile optimized. So if you're on your phone or on a tablet, it'll come up and display nicely on those devices for you. And I think we're almost there and everyone will get to go home. So if we go to the next other direction, awesome. Here's a few items that we constantly talk to our customers about and try to provide a bit of guidance. Street lights, we get a lot of calls about street lights not working. That's an Access Canberra matter. They've got a really great website where Fix My Street will send through an update, or you can call them. Your bill or your plan for your electricity, and we can't look at that. So absolutely encourage people to talk to their retailer if they've got a concern about their bill. And the other thing is a meter. So sometimes we'll talk to customers properly. They've got a question about their read. They want to know how to read it. Absolutely talk to your retailers for that. Since 2017, Evo Energy, under the legislation, can no longer install meters. So that's all managed by the retailer. We do have some helpful hints and tips on our website about how to read a meter if you want to have a look at that yourself. But absolutely your retailer can help you out with that. And I think questions. Look, super fast. Any questions?
The one over here.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the presentation. I know you'd, so all the infrastructure, that's what you looks like you guys provide, and it's up to the retailer how to take them further and supply to the Canberra market. So in terms of price, who determine the price? Is it, because the ACT government proudly announces that, we are 100% renewable or about to approach, but the electricity price doesn't reflect that. It keeps going.
Yeah.
So when you talk to the providers like Transact, they say it's because of the ACT government. So I don't know whether is it because of you guys or because of the ACT government. Let's solve the puzzle today.
Yeah, and pricing's probably, and I'll probably couch it in that we probably won't solve that puzzle today, but it's quite a big conversation. But putting it quite simply, the way that it works is that there's a number of different tariffs that go into your bill. There is a portion of it that's network charges. So that's the cost of us maintaining the network and getting electricity to the home. There's also the retail tariffs, which is about what the retailers charge customers. And in the ACT, that's looked after by the ICRC. For the network tariffs,
what's
the ICRC? I always get the independent commission. I'll look it up for you. It's the ACT government regulatory body for this jurisdiction for a range of things, including electricity, gas and water. So they look after the retail pricing. The AER, so the Australian Energy Regulator, regulates Evo Energy's network prices and all distributors' prices. When you're talking about ACT government, obviously there's jurisdictional fees that do come into that. That's not something that Evo Energy has control or influence over. And absolutely, I'd encourage people, if they've got questions about that, to have a look on the ACT government's website in regards to jurisdictional charges. But Evo Energy has the ability to change.
Okay, so because this year they said it's 10% from this financial, it's like up to 10% being increased on the electricity. So I'm not sure, like they said, we haven't changed it. Nothing is,
Who's
it's
they?
all the Transact.
Oh, okay, yep,
sure. And then they said, it's active, active
Yep.
agent. It's all because of the ACT government, the tax and all kind of things which they charge them. I don't know, but there's no kind of transparent place where we could see how this is all divided, like where the money goes.
Sure.
So is there any portal that people can actually have a look and see how it's actually divided?
Absolutely. So there's quite a hefty document on our website called a tariff structure statement that has some information about tariff structures. That's renewed every 5 years as part of our regulatory period. So electricity distributors operate on a 5-year period. There is some information on our website in regards to jurisdictional charges, and there's absolutely information on the ACT government's website in regards to that as well. But,
actually in the last.
Yeah.
months in relation to that. So you have a look around with different.
We can certainly share some.
When you
some
say
links.
ACT government website, could you be just
So-
a tiny bit more specific?
Absolutely.
Cool.
So you can go onto the EPSDD's website and have a look at theirs. I can send some links through.
That'd be great. Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah,
that
we can
you
share
point
that.
you in the right direction for that.
Any other queries? All right. Well, thank you very much
Wonderful.
for holding on all night, and
No problem.
appreciate that.
Thank you for having us.
It is a complicated space, but it's something that all of us hold very near and dear to our hearts, particularly during Canberra winter. We,
Absolutely.
Don't have gas.
Yeah.
So we buy gas.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming out. Cheers. Thank you all this evening for putting up with some of the foibles with the technology. We'll be back again next month. We've got a couple of interesting talks, which at the instant, but
Minister is coming.
Minister in October. Yeah, Minister in October. But there are a couple of other things coming on in September. But obviously, if there are any specific topics people want to see us get a speaker for, then please pass those on. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month. Good night. 2 seconds. Just two seconds. Just let me fix.
Oh, I'm not on.
Yes, you are on. Everyone's on. Just need
You're
to.
still on. You're now very clear to the near to the camp.
I'll hold that up.